All right, guys, it is time to talk the Real Housewives of New Jersey, and we have some amazing tea that changed everything, okay? Teresa, Dina, Jennifer, Priscilla, all on vacation celebrating Teresa Giudice's 50th birthday, and they dropped a bombshell. And Melissa went on a podcast and was, of course, talking about Teresa. So before we get started, make sure you subscribe to my channel, hit that like button, turn those notifications on. They're so important so that you don't miss anything, because you never know when I'll go live and give you guys some gossip, because I was early to report on the whole Lisa Rinna and Kathy Hilton messages yesterday. I did a live on my lunch. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So, I always like to give you guys a little bit of a backstory, but let you know that there are older videos. I did a 2-part series deep dive into the Manzos, okay? And with that, I broke down the Dina and Tommy situation. So Dina and Teresa are best friends, right? Dina's ex-husband is Tommy Manzo. So the best way to break this down is that Caroline and Dina are sisters, and they were married to brothers Al and Tommy Manzo, who have been alleged since the beginning of being affiliated with one of the largest crime families in the New York, New Jersey area, okay? So this isn't the first time we've heard of possible mobster ties when it comes to the Manzos. I also let everyone know that Tommy and Dina's wedding was on VH1's My Big Fat Wedding. It's been scrubbed from the internet. It's practically impossible to find clips or information on it. But if you look hard enough, you may find some photos and some commentary on it, and it's pretty surprising. Anyways, they're happily married. Fast forward, they're not so happily married, and Dina wants to get a divorce. And I guess Tommy really didn't want to get a divorce. He didn't like that idea. And so Dina, moved out. They were getting divorced. She starts dating this man, David, who she now is married to. He's assaulted behind a strip mall. They suspect Tommy and his, people, but they can't prove it. They end up moving to California simply because David was beat up, and they were nervous and scared and felt like they were being followed and so forth. And they flew home from California to film with Teresa for the Real Housewives of New Jersey, a episode concerning Dina's goddaughter, Teresa's daughter, Adriana. And it was some sort of like baptism. It wasn't baptism or confirmation. I always get it wrong, so I apologize, but it was something similar to that. And whenever Dina and David went home to a townhouse that they kept in New Jersey, there were 2 masked men waiting for them who zip-tied them, covered their faces, beat them, and robbed them. It was later discovered that the person in the home was an affiliate of Tommy Manzo, and he later admitted that this whole thing had been orchestrated by Tommy Manzo, and he paid the guy by giving him a discount wedding reception at the brownstone for his daughter. Yes. And some people asked, was Tommy convicted? Yes, Tommy was convicted. That's what's so significant about these letters that Caroline, and now we're finding out Dolores wrote in support of Tommy Manzo getting an early release from prison after he was convicted of orchestrating the home robbery invasion on Dina and her husband, David. So this changes things, okay? Let's first of all, we found out because God bless this reality website that because I don't usually, when I post things, I don't tag Dina and Teresa or whoever I'm talking about. I don't know if you're supposed to do that or not. I don't usually do that. But she tagged them and said, happy birthday, Teresa. And it's so beautiful to see that you and Dina have remained friends all these years. You have a beautiful friendship, etc., etc. People start commenting, and a commentator says something along the lines of Caroline writing this letter in favor of getting Tommy Manzo out, because when that happened, viewers found out and they were furious, and Dina and Caroline have not spoken since. Now, I could do a deep dive into their relationship alone because there's a lot of things to uncover there. Comment in the comments if you want that. P.S. My Jennifer Armstrong deep dive, I'm going to try to upload it tonight. If it doesn't come up tonight, it should definitely be there tomorrow. Anyways, where were we at? We were talking, okay, so Caroline writes the letter, right? We find out Dina and Caroline have not spoken since. Caroline's son, Albie, has a podcast, and she ended up going on the podcast. Did she go on it, or he was just speaking about it? I'm not sure if she went on, but he spoke about it and, basically said that his mother stands for the truth, and that she wasn't picking, her brother-in-law over her blood sister. And he basically stuck up for his mother, but people were still completely outraged. So we had zero inkling that Dolores also wrote a letter in favor of an early release from prison for Tommy Manzo after being convicted of orchestrating the home invasion on Dina and her new husband. And we found out through this website because the person that commented about Caroline also said, I heard Dolores wrote one too. And Dina effing commented and said, yeah, Dolores wrote a letter too. And then Teresa followed up and said, like, love you. You know how Teresa is. She's like, love you. I'm so glad we've been friends all these years. Ha ha ha. And everyone's like, whoa, what? Dolores wrote a letter in favor of Tommy Manzo too? What? Yeah. So she did. Now, fans that have picked up on this, because everyone is reporting on it, are saying that they see the reunion in a different light now. Because don't forget, guys, Teresa was getting ate up for not inviting Dolores to her engagement party, remember? And even Kim D, who was on Behind the Velvet Rope, she didn't say that Dolores wrote a letter in favor of Tommy either. So if she would have known, I think she would have told us. We knew that Dolores wasn't invited because of Dina, and Dina being the maid of honor and it being a small, intimate party. Mostly because Dolores remained so tight with Caroline. They were seen filming together in LA. They took a picture and posted it. And allegedly they had like this competition or something that they filmed for. And I also shared with you guys a video from Dolores' story, and it was like Caroline and Kathy Walkeely in it. So we knew that Dolores had remained friends with people that Dina did not want knowing where she was at, where she was going to be at, times, places, etc., because she didn't want that information going back to the Manzos for her own protection and her husband's own protection. Guys, this was a big deal. She had PTSD from it. I mean, anyone that comes into their home and is greeted by a robber who actually, blindfolds you and zip ties you and beats you and robs you. She had PTSD. She's posted multiple sessions with a doctor who's a psychiatrist who, of course, supports holistic medicine. And she's been open with her struggles, but she's definitely had issues since the robbery. And as I had mentioned, she came home from California because they were filming for New Jersey Housewives, and she was filming with Teresa. So therefore, people knew she was in town. People knew her schedule. They knew they were going to be there that weekend, and that's why they attacked. So because this happened to her previously, she was, with Teresa filming, and the information made it back to the Manzos. She doesn't want that happening again. And allegedly, she requested to Teresa, like, yes, I will be your matron of honor, but like, she didn't want people that still kicked it with the Manzos to be around her. And if Teresa decided to honor that, I guess that would mean Dolores would not be at the engagement party. And Teresa took hell at the reunion, I thought, with the millions of questions regarding Dolores not being invited to the reunion. And I said, guys, this is kind of a big deal that Teresa didn't tell anyone this. Number one, she definitely would have known because Dina, they claim, they're such dear friends. And number two, she even went on a podcast and they asked her about it, and she just was very kind about it, and she took the blame. She said, look, she didn't do anything. It was just we wanted to do something small and intimate for couples that really knew me and Louis. Dolores had never really met Louis or hung out with him all like that, and so they only had 2 tables. They wanted to keep it an intimate event, and because they had never hung out together and so forth, she decided not to invite her to the wedding or to the engagement party. So she took the blame the whole time. She took the blame for saying that it was her that didn't want to invite Dolores, only because, you know, Louis, they never double dated, they didn't hang out, she didn't really know Louis, and they wanted people that like knew them both at the engagement party because they were limited to the amount of people they wanted to have there. We heard Louis say that he's like a small time guy and he would be perfectly happy getting married at the courthouse and going out to breakfast afterwards. So to me, I think the small intimate engagement party was probably Louis's request, right? So she took the fall for that. She's never let that slip. She's never said anything about that. And that would have been a great opportunity to be like, well, Dolores wrote this letter in support of a convicted felon who was serving time in prison for a home invasion, and she wrote a letter in support of them. And unfortunately, the victim of this crime, you know, is my dear friend Dina, who's in my wedding, and she is uncomfortable being in the presence of someone that supports her abuser. She could have said that. I'm not trying to be mean, but she could have said that. She could have thrown something at Dolores. She could have tried to turn it, spin it, hocus pocus, change the focus, and somehow round it back to Dolores, but she didn't. And I don't know why. I'm surprised. I guess that would really show her loyalty to Dolores or to Dina, because Dina probably requested that, you know, she doesn't want Teresa, she doesn't want anyone knowing her business. So the things that she tells Teresa, obviously Teresa knows she can't speak about them on camera. She doesn't want to, you know, bring Dina into anything. And because of that, and because of honoring her friend, she took the heat for not inviting Dolores, when really Dolores had done a really sketchy thing. And she didn't tell us either. And, you know, we don't like that when they don't tell us. And then we find out that they were lying. So I know she didn't lie, guys. I'm just saying, like, we don't like that. Viewers don't like that. We don't like to find out after the fact. You better be upfront with us. We get pissed about that, right? Also, just make sure you guys comment. Don't get mad sometimes if my opinion sways one way or the other. I really try to leave my opinion out and give you guys the tea, okay? But on this subject, I can't help it, okay? So Melissa Gorga did a podcast where she was saying, again, that if it weren't for Joe and Melissa, they held the showdown while she was in prison, and they helped make Judice money because he wasn't working. So they filmed with him a couple of episodes, and all of these things, right? And number one, I want to say the only time we hear about Melissa, like outside of the season, you know, besides like little photos she might post of being on vacation or when she's doing promo for Real Housewives in New Jersey, we don't hear much about her, right? I mean, we don't hear much about her. So every time I see her like in a headline, it's over a podcast, and it's always over a conversation, comment, or whatever regarding Teresa. Since their union, she went on our podcast and like talked about how they're not speaking, and she gave like details on when she was just like fed up. And then Joe went on Melissa's podcast, and that's when he was talking about the nieces and how they wouldn't have had food on the table or live in the house that they lived in if it weren't for him and Melissa. And now she has gone on a separate podcast, and she is saying basically that Teresa needs to be grateful that Melissa would have been picked for the Real Housewives of New Jersey no matter what. She said that New Jersey has basically interviewed everyone, and to think that her and Joe wouldn't have been picked regardless is insane, according to Melissa. I can agree that if they were casting and say like Teresa wasn't on the Real Housewives in New Jersey, it was just a regular cast, and they met Joe and Melissa, yeah, sure, they would cast them, right? But does that mean that they would have like, you know, all these successful seasons? No. Does that mean they would even have had a successful franchise? No, it wouldn't. It just would have meant, yeah, they would have given you a shot, right? She says that, you know, basically, like I said, that Bravo hit up every girl in New Jersey, and that her and Joe would have got on already, obviously, And they said also that Bravo tells Teresa she can't say that Melissa went behind her back and came on the show anymore. She said basically Bravo doesn't want to hear her say that anymore. And she says it's because it's like worn out. People are sick of hearing about it. And I say it's because Bravo helped Melissa and Joe go behind Teresa's back. And they don't want to look bad to viewers because they know if Teresa speaks on it, what's Melissa and Joe gonna do? Well, because Bravo protects them, you know, like Kathy Wall-Keeley, they said producers told them not to tell Teresa and Joe, to just go about it, do your interview, and if you get casted, keep it a secret, and we'll let you know when you're allowed to tell people. So I don't think Bravo wanted to come out looking bad, and I don't think Andy Cohen wanted to come out looking bad too, because, you know, he was still starting his career and start in the Real Housewives world, and I don't think that he probably did go behind Teresa's back. And we've spoke about how she found out the night before the christening at like 9 o'clock at night when producers called to tell her that they were filming the next day the christening, her brother's christening, which would have been a shock to her because she would have planned on going to the christening, but she wouldn't have planned on going there and filming together with her brother and sister. Like, she was in complete shock. She didn't know they were joining the show. So she had to go film as an obligation the next day at the christening because she was still in contract. And Joe and Melissa, it was their first day of like filming and the family and all of that. So there was a lot of tension because Teresa had just found out the night before. Now, another thing I want to bring up about Melissa is, yes, I do think her and Joe would have been casted. But when she was trying to get on the show for that 2 to 3 years, Bravo didn't want her. Like, that's the whole point, was she was persistent. So I'm not gonna knock her for being persistent, because you got to be persistent in life. It got her on the Real Housewives. It's gotten her a paycheck the last 8 years. Anyways, basically, Bravo didn't want her. She had been DMing Danielle. She had been DMing Andy. She had been, following the camera crew at Dina's events at the Brownstone. She was having people write to Bravo telling them Teresa has a younger, hotter, richer sister-in-law that you need to know about. You know what I mean? She even sent in a tape. So we've heard about the tape. We've heard from producers and Kim D and lots of folks who say we would just die if we saw the tape, Melissa's audition tape, right? So she was petitioning Bravo to get on that show. And what broke the straw was when they had it out over the Christmas cookies. And Melissa went on to Facebook, because back then Facebook was an exciting social media platform. And she was making posts about the cookies and this whole fight and so forth. And so that ended up igniting Bravo's interest in saying, okay, we'll, bring you on and let you film and see what happens. So she knew that she had to bring it, which is probably why they also wanted to move into that huge mansion, because they wanted to make it look good for filming for the first couple of years. And I also think, like I said, it is fair to say that her and Joe would have likely been a television couple personality that we could cast for something for the Real Housewives of New Jersey. But look at all the people that have come and gone. Do you remember the twin sisters? The one that had the boyfriend that had slept with the mother? And remember Amber? Those girls came and gone. I mean, there's been a lot of women that have came and gone on that franchise. And you don't even know if it would have been a successful franchise if not, because there were so many years where Teresa and their legal issues were the main storyline year after year after year, okay? Because they got indicted, they had to deal with it, they were going to court, then they had Teresa going to prison, Teresa coming home from prison, the time in between when no one's in prison, and then we have Joe going to prison and then coming home, and then another 3-part series. So thankfully, honestly, everyone that was in that franchise, it was a win-win for them, okay? It was a win-win when Teresa and Joe got this conviction and went to prison, because they were making a lot of money. And I'm going to tell you guys another thing. When Joe Giudice came home and he did a virtual interview with Andy Cohen and Teresa, he flat out told Andy Cohen that. He said, basically, Andy Cohen should be thanking his ass because no one had even heard of the Real Housewives in New Jersey till him and Teresa came along. And you know what? Andy really didn't say shit. He didn't really fight him, because they were making a lot of money off of this franchise. Like, they were on top when this was a big deal when Teresa was going to court, when they were indicted. I mean, it was a big deal. And that's why, you know, Caroline and Jacqueline were making such a big deal about it too, because it was very, very, just so much to the story, you know, a little bit being, you know, like a onion peel, they say, like peel back another layer and another layer and another layer. And that's what it was like when all of Joe and Teresa's legal issues started. And the last thing I'm going to say, because I'm going to wrap this video up really quickly, is I saw some comments regarding Dorit and PK and the robbery. And I wanted to say that there was a lot of people saying, like, it's a possibility maybe PK set this up. Dorit doesn't know, maybe she doesn't know their financial situations. You know, she wouldn't have had anything to do with it, so on and so forth. And people were saying, like, she's going to end up like Teresa Giudice, because if she's playing dumb and she's just like, oh yeah, whatever, PK, sure, no, same here, she could end up in a lot of trouble if things go down. I'm just saying. Somehow Erica and Tom got away with it. And I'm still going to say that it's possible they may target Erica with criminal charges after Tom dies. But Tom knew so much on so many people, and he made so many donations to the city and the police and fundraising and politics, that if they charged him criminally and there was an obligation to go back on these records with these people, they don't want that, okay? That's a big deal. If money that was stolen was given to these people, right? It's a big, big, big deal. But that's not technically proven in civil court. It is, but it isn't, right? The state doesn't have an obligation to look at where those funds went within the county and the state. And, you know, like I said, the people that Tom was supporting, politicians, legislate, on and on and on. We saw him. We saw Erica, her first season, her first episode. They run into the chief of police at the restaurant. They hug him. They tell him they love him. You know, if he was charged criminally and convicted, there would be an obligation by the state to investigate where these people's money went. And if it starts showing up in mayors or judges' accounts or politicians, then they have a really big problem on their hand, okay? Because if he supported prosecutors, they could pull every case that prosecutor ever, you know, worked on, and then they would have to turn it over, retry it. I mean, it could be an endless mess. And for that reason, I think, I hate to say this, they just want Tom to die. They're like, you're basically getting your punishment in your nursing home. You're not in your mansion. You're not living, you know, life up to the nines and supporting Erica, you know, and then putting it on TV. Like, you're just over here in this old man nursing home, you know, living out the last couple months, year of your life, right? So I don't think they're worried about him. I think when he dies, mark my words, I'm like Caroline with my predictions, they're gonna hit Erica with criminal charges. So, all right, guys. Like I said, my Jennifer Armstrong video will be coming out, and then also my part 2 on the Hiltons. It's really good, so you might want to check it out.